We're coming to our second weekend of Advent, our second week of this Advent season, our second week of our liturgical year. We made it through the first week with a few hiccups. I mean, it really kind of started last Sunday when we got the news that the world has changed and OU no longer has a coach and hell has just breached the earth. Though the rumor is Brent Venables is signing today, just saying. But does that really matter? Does it really matter if OU has a coach? Does it really matter if OSU got this close? Ugh. In the grand scheme of things, no. But that's what the world wants us to focus on today. The world wants us to focus on earthly things. It doesn't want us to focus on faith. It doesn't want us to focus on what truly matters. And what truly matters is a life of faith. As we hear in today's gospel, John was that voice crying out in the wilderness, "Prepare ye the way of the Lord." Prepare. What does it mean for us to be in preparation? If you've ever done anything, preparing for the SATs, preparing for a final exam, preparing to take on and go into battle, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes intentionality. Growing up, though, I didn't like those things. I had knee-jerk reactions everything that I looked into. I wrestled as a third grader and then again in high school, and I got 3 varsity wins in wrestling. All of them were forfeits, but there were still 3 varsity wins. I put in all the preparation. I had to go and run stairs, though I found the easy way out. If you throw up, they don't make you run. So I didn't even give in to true preparation for things that ultimately don't matter. How many times do we fall into that same trap ourselves? We hear that saying, the Lord helps those who prepare. That if you go into a giant test or a giant thing that is going to be changing your life and you don't prepare for it, odds are you're probably not going to do that well, right? But then when you take that extra time, put the extra effort in, you're intentional about studying and focusing on the path ahead of you, odds are we're probably going to do pretty well. It's the same way in the life of faith. For those 3 that just got accepted into the order of the catechumenate, they're going through this preparation period in their lives, this rite of Christian initiation class time to prepare their hearts to be ready for baptism. Because once we reach the age of reason, which the church says is 7, we have to be able to prepare ourselves to receive those gifts. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear about the age of reason, I think 35 maybe, because teenagers definitely are not rational. Young adults think they know everything, and the church, though, has faith. And it says when you can discern right from wrong, you can be reasonable. But do we instill reason and faith in our children? Or do we just kind of pass the buck to whomever is watching over them that day? There's a big fear in the world today that our kids are going to be receiving a world that is not better than it is now. That's troubling. Because as parents and as priests, we want to do what? We want to prepare something better for the next generation, right? And we can. There is still time. There is still those opportunities to do so, but it takes our intentionality to put forth that extra effort to love them, to teach them. But Father, there's things that are really difficult to teach. I mean, the world is saying it's Christmas. The world's been saying it's Christmas since November 1st. What's your point? The world's been saying it's Christmas since July. Christmas in July. Nope, Christmas still in December. And we have it that way for a specific reason. Was Jesus born on December 25th? 1 in 365 chance of yes. Probably not. Why liturgically do we celebrate the birth of Christ on December 25th? Because the darkest day of the year is the few days before then. What is one of the names that we give to Christ? The light of the world. So right after the darkest day of the year, Christ brings light into the year, and it only gets brighter until it gets darker. And that with baptism, we are given that first light, the light of faith, from that Easter candle that is lit at the Easter vigil. That fire of faith that is lit at our baptism is to continue in our lives and to continue to be kindled. I don't know about you guys, but I loved camping growing up. Not because I wanted to sleep outside, not because I was rustic. I like to play with fire. Pyromaniac. I get to play with fire every Sunday as a priest. If you're a pyromaniac as a kid, be a priest. But you'll know if you ever started a campfire, if you don't tend to that fire, what happens? It goes out. Unless you're in western Oklahoma and there's wind and it goes everywhere. But for the most part, unless that fire is tended to, unless that fire is kept, that fire goes out. It's the same way with the fire of faith that begins at our baptism. Unless we continue to delve deeper into our faith, unless we continue to learn about who God is and why that matters to us in our lives, that fire that is given to us at baptism, that is reminded to us only one other time in our life, at our death, at our funeral, will lay dormant, be snuffed out. But the Lord gives us a plethora of opportunity to reignite that flame of faith. Through the season of Advent, when we light these candles, it's not just a pretty thing up here to do. It reminds us of our hope, our faith, our joy, and the peace of the world. But how many of you guys knew that that's what the candles meant? Outside of, I know it's Advent, we got to light these candles and make sure to light the right ones in the right order or Father gets mixed up. So we light the first two purple ones, and then we light this one that's rose and not pink, and then the other purple one. Why do we do that? Because it's an outward sign of what internally we are working on. We are working on putting Christ first and having hope in that everything that he said to us is true. And as people of faith, we then integrate that faith and allow that hope to give us life. And when we truly integrate that hope and live lives of faith, we are people of joy. And if we are people of joy, we will find peace in our hearts, and we can be peace in the world. This all starts with that first step. That first step, putting ourselves forward, or our parents putting us forward and being marked with the sign of the cross, being claimed by Christ in the name of faith, and then receiving the gifts of the Holy Spirit, the fruits of the Holy Spirit in baptism and the other sacraments of initiation to feed us, to sustain us. These last few years when I was working at the high school, I began to understand why coaches are such hard people, difficult people, on making sure that the athletes stay conditioned. Because if you don't stay conditioned, you will be outworked. So why do you have to run suicides, which is a horrible name for those anyways, down and backs, whatever you want to call them. Why do you have to run those? Because you want to make sure that you have the same energy in the fourth quarter or in the third period as you did in the first quarter. You want to be able to bounce back if you go down at half, to be able to get back up and play the rest of the game. So if you are down in your faith right now, it's only halftime. This is your halftime speech. I'm not Bob Stoops. I'm not Mike Gundy. I'm not Brent Venables. But I am a priest, calling upon you to embrace your faith, to not wait one more minute, one more day, to allow that fire in your life to be ignited. The world is negative out there. We are called to be the positive vibe out there. What are we doing about it? How are we bringing positivity into the world? Well, today we've got 3 that have been accepted into the order of the catechumenate. And in just a few minutes, Rance will be baptized into the faith. How do we see these things as positive things and rejoice as a family of faith? And not just leave that faith at the door when we go out into the world and we have that first obstacle that comes and hits us face to face. How do we keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back? Not just when we have to, not just when we come home for Christmas break, not just on Christmas and Easter, our Creaster Catholics, or not just Palm Sunday, Ash Wednesday, Christmas and Easter, our Pace Catholics. Maybe keeping the pace, but the pace has another 48 weeks in it. We've got to keep up with our faith. Just like if you're a doctor, you have to do continual education. If you're a lawyer, you have to do continual education. Believe it or not, if you're a priest, you have to do continual education. Why? Because the world changes. Our understanding of the world changes. And my prayer for you is the same as the prayer that St. Paul had in our second letter to the Philippians. My prayer for you is that you be loved and you seek understanding, knowledge, and wisdom in the faith. That, my brothers and sisters, is the life of a disciple. We're going to have hard days. They're only going to get harder. I hate to burst your bubble. You're going to have days where you just don't have the oomph to do it. When you don't, allow the Lord to be that extra oomph, to get you to roll out of bed sometimes when you can't roll out of bed, to get you to make yourself presentable before the Lord, and to be His representative in the world, to live a life of faith, a life of hope, a life of joy, that ends ultimately in a life of peace, peace that can only come from Christ. And if we do that, we will have properly prepared our hearts. We will have taken up the mantle of that fire of faith, and nothing can snuff that flame.